Oklahoma is my home. This is where I was born and raised. It was here where I was given a chance at life, being conceived after my mother was violated at the age of 16. This is where I received my education and learned with hard work, discipline, and courage.
Welcome, everyone, to another virtual town hall. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Sherwood. As you know, your 2022 Oklahoma gubernatorial candidate. Super happy to be here tonight. It's another night where we get the opportunity to bring on and talk to and discover some more Oklahoma First candidates, ones that I have a great relationship with. I've got to know both of these guests tonight, which I'll tell you about in just a moment, very, very well over the last several weeks, and super impressed. I mean, great people, great patriots, great Oklahoma First persons, lovers, and great constitutionalists, which we need right now. Also, women that really put God first. And I really appreciate that, because we need to understand that the idea of the government in which we have, this republic from which we stand upon and we want to protect right now at all costs, was really formed with this idea that was given to us by God. So these rights that are given to us, these inalienable rights, are really not just given to us by the Constitution, but actually they were given to us by God and outlined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So let us understand that. A couple things I want you to keep in mind tonight before we begin. A lot of announcements coming up. We've been all over the state the last couple of days. Just yesterday, which was Saturday, I was in Waurika, then Chickasha, then off to Owasso, Oklahoma this morning, and now we're right back here on the statewide, or nationwide really, virtual town hall with you, so we're excited about that. By way of reminders, I want to remind you of our website and our app. It's right here. It says, "Never bow down to tyrants, defy them," and many of you understand what we talk about when we use the word tyranny. Some people don't like that word. But let us understand what that is. And I know it's kind of a militaristic sort of ish term, but when we understand tyranny, we need to understand it from this context. When the people fear the government on any level, that's called tyranny. Because remember, the government's supposed to work for the people. So when the people fear the government for fear of not taking care of them or fear of punishing them, that's called tyranny. However, on the other hand, when the government fears the people, that doesn't mean people are going to take up arms against the government, but it means that they could if they had to, if they were fighting against tyranny. So we understand the government fearing the people is going to be the idea of freedom. But when we have tyranny going on, where it's inappropriate force, overreach, and control, and taking away the power from the people, our job as people is to absolutely defy, which means we need to obediently disobey. I hope you get that drift, because that's important. So we need to walk in freedom. We, the people's voice, must get bigger. The government's size must get smaller. We, the people, must gain control again of our nation. We do that by gaining control locally through our voice, through our actions, through our voting, through our getting involved. We can only save our country when we save our backyards. There's a lot of talk that goes on about making America great again and saving America and the America First movement, and all that's right. But folks, hear me carefully. We cannot save our country until we save our own backyard. It is ridiculous and irrelevant. So we need to understand that it's important to get involved locally to make national attention. Get involved locally to make a national difference, because local differences affect national culture, but not the other way around. You can get national differences, but not affecting the local culture. So need to understand that. A couple of announcements coming up by way of this week. We'll be in Oklahoma City tomorrow and Tuesday, and then in Alva on Wednesday night. On Thursday, we'll be in Stevens County. On Friday in Mino, Oklahoma, and on Saturday we'll be in Miami, DePue, and then we have an event in Tulsa on the 11th, which is Saturday. Thing starts at 6 o'clock. It is really cool. We're going to bring in the singer Billy Falcon. Many of you have seen one of his videos that we put out on our page that he made with us as part of a music video, but he is a great guy. He's a songwriter for Bon Jovi, and he's got a great story, a great testimony. He's a wonderful man of God, and he's got a great patriotic genre of music, and he's extremely talented. And I want him to meet the people of Oklahoma. So I want you to come out. We'll make sure to put a link in the feed for you. So there's a lot of things going on this week. We are just a few days away. I think about 23 days to be exact from June 28th, the elections. You got to get out and vote, folks. You got to get out and participate. Failing to participate is becoming part of the solution. Part of the solution then is when we get out there, it's becoming part of the problem. So the solution is to get out there and vote. We got to get there and vote. Carpool, bus pool, go by and get people. If you live in the country, get your combine and go pick them up. Go get your pickup truck. They can ride in the back. I know you might get in trouble for that in the city, but do it in the country, you'll be all right. And go down to your polling place and get involved and become part of the solution. A lot of candidates across Oklahoma that really are doing great. We have this Oklahoma First movement that really matters. And this whole idea of a movement that can affect the entire trajectory of the state is incredibly important. So make sure that you get out and vote. Now, I'll be monitoring the questions tonight that come in through the feed. So we're live right now on the Mark Sherwood for Governor page, and I'm monitoring the feed right here on my cell phone right now. So I want to make sure that you know what is happening tonight in our feed and ask the questions, share the video, etc. And our two-part series tonight, we have one candidate followed by the other. The first candidate we'll have on, she is running for House District 46. It'll be Kendra Wesson. I'll introduce her very shortly. And the second candidate we'll have on at roughly 7:30 will be House 50, Jennifer Sengstock. Tonight, time with our candidates. I got to meet Kendra Wesson a few weeks ago. We talked on the phone and really hit it off. We shared similar philosophies and ideas, and I was very impressed with her aptitude, her communication skills, her passion, and her reason for getting involved. Then I was fortunate enough to meet her family. I got to meet her wonderful husband at an event we had in Norman about a week and a half ago. What a great couple, man. They were just amazing, and clearly I saw strength and passion in them that I thought was great. They've got a great marriage, a great relationship, and they're very honoring to each other, and that's always very appreciative. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first guest tonight, Kendra Wesson. Kendra, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited. Thanks for being here. So, when we talk about this thing called House District 46, again, people listening to this feed all over the place, not only in other states, but all over the state of Oklahoma. And it's important for people to understand, where is House District 46? I know you've been out today knocking on doors. So kind of give a rough degree of House District 46.
Okay, so it's essentially the west side of Norman. It is located only in Norman since the redistricting. So it starts at Indian Hills, just south of Moore, and it goes up to 12th Street. And then it comes down to, let me look at my cheat here, Tecumseh Road, goes up to Porter, and then it kind of jogs down along Robinson, down along Main Street, and follows 24th Street south to Highway 9, and follows it all the way around to 12th Street southeast, which includes, for Norman people, it would be the trails and all of that southern area all the way down to the river. And then on the western boundary is the river as well. So it's essentially the west side of Norman, like I said, about 39,000 people. And it's not too big of an area geographically, so I'm very blessed. I know a lot of candidates have to drive and hit some those rural areas, and I'm just thankful that I have a little bit of farmland out west, but other than that,
you've been out knocking doors even today, haven't you?
Yes.
It's good. So, for those of our listeners that don't know you and really what you stand for, kind of begin by telling people why you stepped up and why you decided to run for House District 46.
Well, I've been involved in political advocacy for a while, especially here in Norman. I feel like Norman was ground zero for a lot of things, testing ground, if you will. The police defunding here was huge, and it was a problem, and it wasn't a city that I thought people would want to live in with the lack of police. We're still feeling the effects of that now. That was June of 2020. Here we are, June of 2022, and down to about 150 officers, need to be at about 200. It just created a situation where we almost can't catch up. So police officers from hire to street is about 18 months. Academy rates have, the attendance at academies has dropped. And it just feels like they're really trying to catch their tails. Our officers have been working overtime, working very hard. We do have some of the best trained officers in the state. Norman officers often go on to be police chiefs in other cities and towns. And I just never really understood the defunding other than Norman trying to get its piece of a nationwide movement that, or actually a blue state movement that, just wasn't Oklahoma. So our conservative Oklahoma values were something that I wanted to stand up and fight for, and I was willing to fight for. And as you know, we take those punches. Strong people lean on God a lot. And from there, it went into, so funding, then learned about critical race theory, began to get into the education piece, became co-chair of School Boards for Kids, which works on getting school board members that are into education and not indoctrination. I was a founding member of FAIR, the South Central Oklahoma chapter, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, which wants to protect free speech on all sides of everything. And that has been an interesting thing. They speak out about critical race theory. I've done some speeches on that. And so I just kept seeing needs, and I kept seeing, it was like a spinning wheel on the Price is Right. It's like so many issues going on. And I knew that I had the time and the stubbornness to deal with it. So I jumped right in. So I spend about 15 hours a week on advocacy and working on things and educating people. Also a founding member of a group here in Norman. We talk about voting for Norman. And we realized that a big issue politically is that voting can be overwhelming. It's something that we should be proud of and engage in, but for some people, it's just overwhelming. So what does the ballot look like? Where do I vote? What does it look like when I go in there? Are people looking at me? Those kinds of things, especially our young voters, it's tough to walk in there that first time. So we educate and communicate with them, encourage them to look at their ballot on Oklahoma Voter Portal, which everyone really needs to do right now because we do have a lot of races that are going to be on the ballot June 28th. You're going to be overwhelmed if you haven't looked at your voting ballot. So you just put in your first and last name and your birthday, and it takes you, you scroll down and you hit a sample ballot, and it shows you the next ballot that you'll be voting on. And then you can research candidates if need be. It's a great tool. I'm really glad we have that, for people to look at in this day and time. And so running for House, especially in this area, was important to me, number one, because it encompassed Norman, and I want to serve Norman. And, we've seen the things that have happened with public safety. I want to be a part of making sure that never happens again. And so I'm very excited, and I knew I had the skills. I'm an accountant. I have a small business, and I go out and help other small business owners weed through just all the day-to-day decisions that are tough. If you're a carpet layer, W-2s, 1099s are stressful. So we want to keep them in compliance. If they need procedures and processes written, I do that. And I also see that they're easy prey for government sometimes. It's a lot easier to go after a small carpet cleaning company, a mom and pop, than it is a corporation who has 12 lawyers specifically assigned to defending them against the government. So at the end of the day, I feel really good about what I do. I know that I'm serving people in that capacity and also earning a living. So I really enjoy that. I kind of created that firm, not really intentionally with that in mind, but it's worked out that way. And it gives me the freedom to work odd hours and to be able to continue my advocacy. So I really enjoy it.
Well, I appreciate all that, and I can echo what you said about the law enforcement from my past experience. 24 years serving in the Tulsa Police Department. I can tell you, folks, unequivocally that Oklahoma in general, and specifically Norman, great trained officers. But when you start trying to take the funds away, they've already been demoralized because of the emotional aspect. We haven't appreciated them the way we should, and then you want to try to take their money away and tell them that they're not necessary. We need to begin to encourage them at all costs, and without question, anyone that wants to refund the police and not defund the police, we need to support them at all costs. So I appreciate that, especially Kendra, from my background. Now, you mentioned something a second ago that I want to tap into a little bit. This idea of critical race theory, equity, all this inclusion. Norman is kind of the hub of this DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And you've had firsthand experience in that. Kind of talk about that, and what are your plans to kind of address that?
Well, we definitely need to realize that the first thing I would tell people is that equity is not equality, right? So I think that people really get that confused. They hear the words, they sound similar. And I think it's fair to say that everyone agrees that we all deserve a fair chance. But we also have, input versus output. America is the land of opportunity. You're given the opportunity to be anything you want to be. And we've seen it happen. We've seen presidents of all backgrounds, all faiths, all races. We've seen amazing things. Even for me to come up and be where I am in life for my background has been incredible. And DEI just focuses maybe too much on some emotional thinking and not so much on rational thinking. And we start thinking with our emotions and feeling bad about this and feeling bad about that. And then is there room for rational thinking? Do we have room to think about what's best, what's concrete, what's common sense? Or are we so caught up in emotion that decisions get made that really don't benefit the children of today, and they're really paying the price? And you can see it. You can see it in our youth. You can see that the struggles that they're having between the social media, the cell phones, all of these things that they're supposed to be and they're supposed to know. Pronouns can change daily, even, kind of switching from DEI to pronouns, because this is the new, the gender. You go to school and your friend's pronoun is she, and then tomorrow is he, and then everyone's mad at you because you called her he instead of she, and then you've got to deal with all that on top of trying to be a good person, make good grades, and just generally get through, childhood. It's tough. And I would just hope that we take Oklahoma has taken a stand against CRT with House Bill 1775, and I was there at that bill signing, and that was important. But we need teeth in those rules. We need tough discussions, and we need to decide where we want to go as a state with these kids. Do we want them educated? How much time are we spending on education right now? 49th, 50th in the state. Third grade reading levels are down. They're down across Norman.
Yeah. Well, I've observed that too. I look at the education in the state, and I think we're sitting at, 47, 48, or 49, depending how you view that statistically. And it's not okay. I mean, we're in a place now where the whole DEI and Norman, in Oklahoma University specifically, I don't mind saying it, is right the hub center of this as a central point of this indoctrination for the whole country, these United States of America. I want to make sure I get your website out there, Kendra. What is your website again, please?
It's KendraForOK.com.
Is it
and for is FOR.
KendraForOK.com. Yes. We'll make sure to put that in the feed. It's actually on the flyer, but I want to make sure we put that in the feed, KendraForOK.com. And folks, if you've got questions for Kendra, I'm monitoring these things right here on the feed, so make sure you do that, because this is important to get, right? So I think it's important. So, Kendra, when you get elected, what are going to be the first few things you're going to try to achieve or bills that you will sponsor or author?
Wow, that's a great question.
Thank you.
I haven't thought about that in a long while. I have been busy on the doorstep and keeping up with issues. I don't know that I'll jump right into running a bill or sponsoring a bill. Honestly, I want to do a lot of learning and make sure that the things that I do and the bills that I do run are needed. We don't need any extra legislation, right? And so I haven't put a whole lot of thought into that piece.
I honor that answer, and I want to tell you why. Because a lot of people go into any job with a mouth and 2 ears, but they use this one twice as much as they use these. And I really appreciate that. So what I heard you say is I want to go in there and I want to learn and listen, and then I want to do what needs to be done appropriately. So folks, that is called wisdom. So I appreciate that. So thank you for that. That means a lot. And it resonates with me. So I think that I hear that, and I think that's using the ears twice as much as your mouth is not only anatomically correct, but I think it's anatomical inferred wisdom by our Lord, no question, right? The idea behind you getting elected, you're there, and your life is going to change a lot. Are you prepared for all that?
Yes, I'm prepared for that.
When you look at this idea of, candidacy and candidates, what is it about you that sets you uniquely apart?
This is always hard for me to talk about myself. I think that a servant's heart is important in these positions, and I think we need more servants' hearts at the Capitol. I think we need people who listen to the people and really care about their needs and their wants. Like I told you earlier, I'm spending a little too much time at the doors on the doorstep, but it's important, and those people are important and they matter. And that's why I'm running, because I want them to matter and I want their voices to be heard, because this is not about me, just like it's not about you. And those things are important to me when I look at who I vote for, and motivations and people, why they do things. And we can sit around and say what's wrong all the time, come up with a list of complaints, but the action's got to be there, and we've got to do what we can to work on things. And that doesn't mean running for office, and that doesn't mean all of the actions that I do. That can be an hour a week, making a difference somewhere with someone. And I think that those things are valuable.
I appreciate that. I know that as we were talking before, we came on tonight, how we get caught up and listen to people. And sometimes we feel bad about that, but then we really shouldn't, because sometimes spending that 30 seconds or 5 minutes with one more person shows them how much you care. And what I've observed in the time that I have last year in this race, it has been a lot of people not spending time with people. And I've observed this about you. When you're engaged with someone, they'll be the most important person that you give them attention. And I've observed that. So I think that's very, very commendable. So I'm grateful for that. And I know the persons that you're going to represent in House District 46 are going to appreciate that as well. Website one more time is kendra4ok.com, and it's FOR, right?
Yes.
Cool. And you mentioned something earlier, the site that was going to talk about the candidates. Mention that one more time too, because I thought that was very helpful.
The site where you can go and see who's on the ballot, it's the Oklahoma voter portal. I don't know the exact website offhand, but you can Google Oklahoma voter portal and it'll bring it up. Put in your first and last name and your birthday, and then go down to sample ballots. And you can see an example of exactly what your ballot will look like when you go in the voting booth.
Perfect. And you, when you're out there, I really want to wish you the absolute best, most amazing journey. And Kendra, we got to talking here, a lot of stuff coming in fast and furious here. So make sure that if you got questions for Kendra, put them in the feed, and you'll be monitoring this, correct? The rest, a little bit left, right?
Yes, I'll go in and answer where I can.
Well, Kendra, I want to appreciate you.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank
30
you.
seconds. Final word. What do you got?
I'm just glad to have this opportunity to run. I'm ready to serve and lean on the Lord and hopefully do a great job.
Well, I appreciate you, Kendra, and thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you down the road for sure, and I can't wait to see you and your husband again very soon. So I appreciate you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Well, folks, I'm grateful because, we saw a wonderful candidate there in Kendra Wesson, House District 42. Next, it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone I saw just yesterday in Waurika, Oklahoma. I was at an event down there at Cross Brand Cowboy Church. Now, I didn't know what I was walking into because I didn't know I was walking into an outdoor arena or an indoor church, but because I've been in both. But I was grateful and appreciative to meet Jennifer and her husband Art in person. I've talked to him on the phone a few times, but to meet him in person is good. We got to give each other a big old bear hug, and it was nice. A mask-free, social distancing violating hug, I might add. So good to be there. So with that said, I want to introduce our next guest tonight. Jennifer Sengstock is running for House District 50, House District 50. So Jennifer, welcome to the virtual town hall.
Hi, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I know, long time no see, right?
Right.
Well, you guys put on a great event yesterday. For those that weren't there, I know you streamed that. Maybe talk about that event a little bit and what that was and where they can see it.
Sure. So that event was actually put on by the Stevens County OK2A chapter. And they kind of actually cover Stevens County, Grady County, Jefferson County. And I think I'm leaving out one other one, but so it was actually put on by them, but Cross Brand Cowboy Church streamed it live on their Facebook. And then we have been putting it out everywhere, sharing it as much as possible. So if you can't find it on any of our pages, then Cross Brand Cowboy Church, you can go to their Facebook page, and they also had it live there as well. It was an incredible event. We had so much fun, and you guys did so awesome because I know y'all are traveling all over the place and you've got multiple events that you're hitting. And so it's, we just kind of worked everybody in as they were able to come through the door, and it was, a kind of come and go type atmosphere. Afterwards, we'd served tacos and everybody ate and had a great time and just sat and fellowshipped and talked and passed out lots of signs. So that's always a good thing.
Well, and I got to eat firsthand Art's beans, and that was really tasty. So I want to tell you, so thank you for that. We'll give Art a shout out there for his cooking skills. For those people that are not familiar with House District 50, can you kind of give us the geographical layout of that on where it is? Because there's people here online that might be out of state, might be all over Oklahoma, and might be in your area, but if you're out of state, you might know somebody in the area. So where is House District 50 geographically?
Well, House District 50 is kind of cut up Stevens County. It does part of Stevens County. It starts at Osage, and it'll go up to Gatlin, and then it cuts over to the east and goes into Bray area. So what it doesn't pretty much cover is Marlow and Central is what it mostly does not cover when it comes to Stevens County. And then we go all the way south, and we include Empire, we include Velma, and then we keep going south. We get into Jefferson County, and we have Ringling, Waurika, Terrell, Ryan, and then there's Loco, which is part of part of Stevens County as well. So it's a very rural, pretty big district. It's a pretty big district. And we started in the rural areas when we started door knocking. And so we just kind of started all the way south at the Red River and started working our way up. And so definitely lots of driving, lots of hot days, but we have met some incredible, incredible people, and they are so grateful for one, to have somebody who will come out and speak to them. They have not had that in a long time. Even if our current representative showed up in 2016, they haven't seen him since. And so it meant a lot to them to be able to have a candidate to come out and to speak to them and ask them, what is on your mind? What are you not happy with? What do you want to see changed? And of course, a lot of it is unanimous across the board. A lot of people weren't happy about the vaccines and what's going on in education right now. So it's a lot of the same topics that everybody is covering. And that's one thing I liked about what you touched about yesterday, is there is such a cohesiveness of the candidates who are running. Mm-hmm. We all share the same message. We all share the same heart, and we're all fighting the same fight together. And that's where it speaks to me in the fact that God is raising an army. He is raising an army of willing vessels to go forward and to do his work. And you said it perfectly yesterday, that it's not something that's been seen before. And it really hasn't. It hasn't been seen before.
Yeah, it's been fascinating, and what you're talking about is what we're doing around the state of Oklahoma is not supposed to be done. And candidacies, you're supposed to stay in your own lane, not talk to other candidates, don't share information with them, don't converse with them, don't talk to them at all, don't have any relationship with them. But it's not like that. This is a bunch of people that are deciding to stand shoulder to shoulder to go to war together. Right. For people and with people. And it is so exhilarating and unique. And a lot of people on the outside in are looking at this like, what are you guys doing and how are you doing that? And that is seeming so amazing. And it truly is. Mm-hmm. With that said, I never really asked you this question. What made you decide to step up and say, you know what, I'm going to run for House District 50?
Well, that decision came actually not until January of 2022. But prior to that, being a healthcare worker, a worker at our local hospital, I'm a surgical tech. And of course, those mandates started rolling out. We had the mask mandates, we had the vaccine mandates, and then we had OSHA mandate that rolled out, the CMS mandate. All of these things began rolling out and piling on top of us. And I began looking at my coworkers, and we were all just kind of like, what are we going to do? We are being faced with the option. Really, there wasn't much of an option. It was either you take the vaccine or you lose your job. And in that aspect of things, it's like, how can our government push something on us that we don't want to happen to us? There's no research behind it. There's no scientific method behind it, other than just the fact you need to take this. And so I just began researching. I began researching like crazy. I followed Dr. Tenpenny. I followed Dr. Artis. I just began one after another. I couldn't get enough of researching. And so I just kept telling my fellow coworkers, stand your ground, stand your ground. We all, thankfully, being in a little bit smaller community, we were all able to begin reaching out to one another. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of connected on the app and began messaging and talking, and we started having meetings together, trying to figure out, how are we going to cope with this? How are we going to get through this? And it was also an encouragement for each of us to bond together. We had a couple of meetings, and then we decided we have to go to the public with this. We have to go to our community and get them behind us as well too. And that's what we did. And so that's what happened in November of 2021. And we did the Medical Freedom Rally. And we had almost 300 of our fellow community members that came out and supported us. It was absolutely amazing. I first sat down, and the first couple of speakers went, and then it was my turn to get up. And when I got up and I looked, and I was like, this room is filled to the back, and there's people standing. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But I just went through and talked about the policies that we were being held to, And the fear that I saw on my fellow coworkers' face, it was daily. We walked in and on pins and needles of what is going to happen today, what has changed, because, oh my gosh, every 30 seconds, the news was coming out with something different of what COVID was and about the vaccine. And it was just so much information, and it was a sensory overload. And then here we are facing our jobs being in jeopardy. And again, it was just that stand your ground, stand strong. We're going to stick this out and we're going to do this together. But it was at that time when I spoke, and several people after that, it's like, you really should run for office. And I said, no, that's not something for me. I said, no, I will back candidates. I will fight, but that's not something for me. And it kept coming. Questions kept coming. And then it was the sermons that I heard that were being preached by our pastor, and just the things that he talked about. And God just kept sitting there, just knocking on my heart patiently. And so finally I said, okay, I have to go into prayer. And so I did for about 2 months. I still wrestled with God, and I wrestled and I wrestled and I wrestled. And I was like, this is not what you called me to. You called me to the medical field. That's the knowledge you gave me. That's the passion and the drive that you gave me. That's just what you instilled in me. And he just sat there very patiently. And he said, okay, any minute she's going to come around to my way of thinking. And I did. I finally made that complete circle and said, oh, I started connecting the dots. And I was like, you put me here for this reason, for this exact moment, because you knew where you were sending me next. And through the years, he had been equipping me, not only with the pastors that we have sat under at our churches, the amazing Bible study group that I have that we've been together going on almost 6 years, an amazing group of women that we stand strong, we pray over each other, we talk things out, and we just dig into God's word, and we just hunger for it. And it was all of those things as I began praying, and God just kept bringing those to light to me each and every time. And I said, okay, I'm submitting to your will, and I will do as you have asked me to do. And that's what brought me to this point here.
Well, I tell you, I said something publicly yesterday, and I want to say it again tonight on our town hall. I won't go into specifics because we'll keep that between us. But I personally, ladies and gentlemen, experienced Jennifer exhibit an incredible amount of integrity in an issue that she handled in a way that was the most honorable way that you could have. And it's a way that, frankly, I had not experienced a lot in the idea of this political scenario in which we now live, because politics is dirty. It really is, folks. It's not the way it is. It's very corrupt. It's very backdoor, under the table, shady financial deals designed around deception and lying and deceit and money. And that's what it is. But I observed Jennifer exhibit something that she did in the quiet, and she handled it with great integrity. So I want to publicly acknowledge that once again, and thank you for that, because you showed an incredible amount of character, and I can vouch for that because I was involved in it, and I appreciate that so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate your words and your wisdom and your thought, and that we could talk person to person about it, because I didn't talk to very many people about that issue, and I felt that it was something that I needed to talk with you about, and that we needed to be on that level and honest with each other. If we're going to be working together in the future, and we will be working together in the future, that's the foundation of a relationship. And I think that's what we're lacking, not only in Washington, but we're lacking in our current state legislation, is those foundations and those relationships that aren't being built on trust and honesty and integrity. And that's what we need to bring back. And that's the values that God instills in us. And that's what we have to bring back to our state capital. is those honest conversations that we can have with each other, and trusting conversations, and not worried about who we're getting money from, where it's coming from, and walking out from a political office, almost a millionaire. That's not what it was ever intended for. It was never intended for that.
No, I echo that, and we've seen that habitually occur recently, and that's not okay.
No.
When you said yes to the call, Jennifer, did you feel like a weight was lifted off your back?
Oh, tremendously. Absolutely tremendously, because when I finally came to the full realization of it, and I went and I told my husband, and I said, okay, I'm running. And I couldn't even say it with a straight face. I mean, it was a being that just was coming out of me. And I was super excited the night that I announced at the GOP, our local GOP. It was an immense weight that was lifted off of me. Absolutely immense weight. And so I knew without a shadow of a doubt, which I knew it before, but when that weight was lifted, I knew that this was the right move.
What's your website, Jennifer? I want to make sure, I know it's on the post or the flyer, but I want to make sure we put it in the feed. So what's your website?
Absolutely. So it's Sengstock for Freedom. And the 4 is also spelled out FOR. So Sengstock for Freedom.
Sengstockforfreedom.com, correct?
.com, yes, sorry.
Got it. Sengstockforfreedom.com. We'll make sure to post that, and we'll definitely mention it at least one more time tonight. So when you look at House District 50, what are some of the unique issues to that area that you have observed, and what are you going to do about them?
Well, some very unique things that I've observed here, and that when I've talked to individuals, they're not happy about the bills that were passed with the marijuana laws. Being a rural area, having land out here, we had grow houses that started popping up all over the place. Actually, the very first night that I spoke and talked about running and announced my candidacy, I had a gentleman that came up to me that very night, and he told me that his property value has been diminished due to a fact to a grow house that is above him, and that the waste shed, as it comes off, it has diminished his property value. And he was just sickened about it. And so we also have the issue with our farmers, the water to their cattle, because these grow houses are pulling a tremendous amount of the rural water supply, not to mention the electricity load that they're putting on the grid. All of these things are tremendous issues in our area, because they just opened the floodgates to come one, come all, throw up your tent and let's start growing. And it has really devalued our area. And there's a lot of individuals who are unhappy about the grow houses that have popped up around them. So for us, that is a massive issue that has happened around here.
Well, I've seen that with my own eyes, and I've talked to the county sheriffs, Jennifer, and everybody's frustrated. I haven't seen or dealt with one person yet. Even the Oklahoma Marijuana Association, the medical, they're not happy about it either. Yeah. And I don't know anyone that's happy except maybe the Chinese Communist Party that's making money off this deal.
Exactly.
That just really goes right through the very core of me and makes me table turning over angry.
Yes.
It's not acceptable. So when you get elected to House District 50 representatives, do you have things you want to accomplish, or what's your kind of your agenda, if you will?
Well, I've thought about that, and I've gone back and forth about a lot of things. I do know something that made a big impression on me, and it was one of the topics that I brought up when I talked at the Medical Freedom Rally. But it was House Bill 2548, and it had to do with the durable power of attorney. And our legislation took the option of the medical coverage out of our power of attorney. And it was happened during a time when we were in the middle of a pandemic, and there were so many things going on. And I think Oklahoma as a whole deserves to have that put back in. I do believe that is an issue that needs to be covered. And there are so many issues that I see that are going on here, especially in the agriculture area. I mean, we have our education, we have the marijuana. There's so many other health bills that have gone through or that weren't passed. I think there were still 44 of them that they never heard this past legislation. So there's a lot of those things to cover. But I also know going into a new career, making that move, you have to go in with eyes wide open and ears wide open as well. And so there's a learning process that takes place during that time. There's a time to kick in the doors and go in with guns blazing, and then there's a time to go in and learn. And we have had so many bills that come across our legislators' desk that are nonsense, that are useless, and that waste their time. And that's the last thing that we need happening up there. We need lawmakers who are looking at things correctly, who are taking the time to read these bills, who have the sufficient amount of time to read the bills, and to do it logically. Case in point, the marijuana bills that went forth, again, was that wild, wild west of throwing the doors open and saying, come on with it. And now it's like, oh, we can go back and make that better. It should have been better from the beginning. And I think with the group of people that we have running and the ones who truly want to make a change and truly want to see Oklahoma prosper and for Oklahoma to be that beacon to other states, we have to go in and we have to have self-control, and we have to look to God to push us down the path and to teach us what we need to do right and to get it right the first time. So I don't have a set agenda of what I want to cover, because there are so many things to cover, but we need to do them properly and get them right the first time.
I agree. That's a great statement and a great philosophy. So I definitely concur. Jennifer, what makes you unique and specially qualified for this job in which you're applying? Let's look at it like that.
Okay. That is a good question. It's also a tough question because it's one of those things you're like, I don't want to brag on myself or don't want to boast. But I can say honestly that from my background, I have an associate's degree in science, a bachelor's degree in science with marine biology, but I'm very scientifically minded in the fact that in science, there's always two sides to something. It's not always just black and white. And I think that's why so many people at work also looked to me when everything was going on at COVID, because I didn't just give them one answer. I gave them both sides. Granted, most of them I was telling them, obviously don't take this vaccine, but I gave them the information to make that thought on their own and to go forward with it. But being scientifically minded and being able to see both sides to a situation and having that compromise. And compromise, some people think, well, that's just weak. That's a cop-out. No, that's what we're missing in our legislation, is that compromise to work together. Because when you just stick your toes in the sand and you're dead set on an issue that you want to push, you're not going to make it very far because you're not working with those other legislators to help in situations. And I think that compromise comes in Oklahoma, where we have such a vast array of how people live. I mean, we have the urban areas, we have the city, we have the rural areas, we have our agriculture, our farmers. So what works in my area may not work in Oklahoma City and Tulsa and Moore and Norman. So that's where that compromise has to come in. That's where you have to be able to look at an issue on either side and say, okay, well, I see this for you, but this is what I need for my area. And you work those bills out together and you come up with something that is equal across the state and doesn't just benefit one area over the other.
I appreciate how you phrase that. It's a good description. I've phrased it like this myself. Instead of sitting down at a square table, you sit down at a round table, right? And you get around the sides of that thing and you look at things from all sides. And it doesn't mean you compromise your principles or right. ethics or morals or godly stances or right. constitutional ideals. It means that you work together to find the art of negotiation within a system to cooperate to find the best solution going forward as a unit. So that's just really good wisdom you laid out there, Jennifer. One more time, your website again.
Sengstockforfreedom.com.
Love it. Sengstockforfreedom.com.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I just appreciate you. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and Art. You guys are some good folks. I look forward to seeing you guys again. Been a lot of just amazing, positive questions coming to the feed, and I appreciate you guys keeping this going. I mean, it's been like great, awesome, good stuff, affirmations, and go ahead and keep this sharing, because this feed will stay on here, and what we're saying right now is memorialized on here. So make sure you share this if you care. And I know you care, so share, and make sure that you get out there and vote on June 28th. So Jennifer, I want you to hang with me as I give some final remarks. Don't just cut off. But final thoughts from you, 30 seconds. Give the folks some good word.
Yes, final thoughts. I just want to share the fact that everybody needs to, and I shared this yesterday, think about your rights, your freedoms, and your liberties when you go in and you look at that ballot. And all of these individuals who have traveled around, and this is something I spoke to the people, think about those who came to rural Oklahoma, literally the last county in the state. They came out here, they took their time, they shared their heart. And that's something that we need to remember when we go in and we vote, is those who took the time to come out and to see us and to talk to us.
Hear, hear. And I must say that the people of rural Oklahoma, not that I'm not taking away from anybody else, but I was actually told at the beginning of this campaign by political experts, I'm using air quotes, to not go to rural Oklahoma. But I got to tell you, the people I've seen in rural Oklahoma have been the most hospitable, warm, welcoming, and amazing people. It's been really cool. Folks, Jennifer, I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us tonight. It really means a lot. And I look forward to seeing you again real soon for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I thank you for doing this so much.
You're welcome. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed tonight. We've got to hear from two Oklahoma First candidates, Kendra Wesson, running for House District 46. Website is posted in the feed. And also Jennifer Sengstock, running for House District 50. We've heard a lot of talk tonight about the idea of education, lockdowns, and even these grow houses. Let me be very clear before we sign off tonight. Under our administration, there will be no lockdowns. There will be no mandates. That is not what we do. First and foremost, I believe unequivocally that was a violation of our constitutional rights. There will be no unconstitutional mandates, rules, or laws given. And if they are given from anybody in that category, our job is to defy those. And law enforcement personnel, if you're given an unlawful order, your job is not to follow that unlawful order. That's called interpositional leadership, by the way. So make sure that you understand what I'm talking about. Now, with the issue of the grow houses, I'm very clear about that. The loopholes are giant. We've got a major problem in Oklahoma. We've got weapons trafficking, drugs trafficking, sex trafficking right here in this state. Not to mention the devalue of land and the devalue of humanity and the devalue of our agriculture system. And that is not okay. So we need to understand that we've got to get our land back. And we need to close those loopholes yesterday. And I will do my part to make sure that happens, work with the legislature, work with the law enforcement to make sure that we do our job to go in there, observe crimes. Hear my heart. We observe crimes. We develop probable cause. We go in there. We make a proper arrest. We'll put people in jail. We'll get them off the streets, out of these grow house criminal enterprise systems that's driven by the Chinese Communist Party to take away the very freedoms from which we have. And we will get our land back, and it'll go right back into the hands of good, hardworking Oklahomans with the idea of CRT, SEL, DEI, our children are being indoctrinated now and not educated. Completely unacceptable. School systems, there is no room for that nonsense anywhere. That does not need to be in Oklahoma schools at all, nor does it be in the children's life. The children should be able to go to school and learn the fundamental skills of life: how to read, how to write, how to communicate, how to listen, the study of history. They should go in and recite the pledge every day. They should observe the Ten Commandments as a moral guide, a moral code. They should not be refused to having taught Judeo-Christian values and history the way it's laid out, and not try to cancel history. History is the great teacher. We look at history in the rearview mirror and see what we can learn from a reference point. Folks, we must go forward. We must correct these problems. We must put the right people in the right place at the right time. And God is raising up an army across this state right now that's going to do that as well. And we're going to see the army go forth and capture the ground that has been taken, and we're going to get it back. We're going to see things shift on June 28th. We're going to see things so miraculous on June 28th, the entire country will be looking at Oklahoma and wonder what happened. And what is happening is God's hand at work, because the people are stepping up for the right things to honor God, protect the Constitution, and represent the people. We, the people's voice, must be heard again. And the only way our people's voice can be heard is if we get the politicians out and the stateswomen back in to understand the power of listening and representing, as opposed to just the power of speaking with political babble all the time. Folks, for my wife and I, we love you very much. We want to thank you for joining us tonight. A lot of things coming up this week. Go to our website, Sherwood2022.com. You can download our app, and you can find out what's going on. And we put the candidates' websites on here tonight, and I want to challenge you and encourage you. You need to get involved, and you need to pray for them, give some time, and if you're called to donate, you need to donate. Even if it's $5, $10, get on there and do it, because signs aren't cheap. If you're supposed to donate towards this campaign, you do that. It is good ground. Good ground gives you the opportunity to see a good crop and a good harvest come out of it. So I encourage you to do that thing. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful night wherever you are. Make sure to continue sharing this feed for people to be informed, because we need to be informed in order to vote the right people in to very important positions. So may God bless you. May he bless your family. May he bless this wonderful state of Oklahoma. And may God bless these United States of America. Good night.
We have up is down, left is right, bad is good, confusion. And God is not the author of confusion.
God wants to bless America, but it starts with his people first repenting and the ending of sin.
We have been in ministry the last 20 years. It was in prayer that the Lord began to convict me to run for office. And so I'm excited about Dr. Sherwood stepping up to the plate.
This is a man after God's own heart who will not compromise with the devil.
He's bold, he's courageous.
I'm Nick Vujicic.
Warren Hamilton.
I'm Jake Merrick.
And I endorse
enthusiastically
Dr. Mark Sherwood
as governor of Oklahoma.
The ending of slavery happened with total abolishing of it. We must see this as well for abortion. It's America's Holocaust.
We still have abortions in Oklahoma. How can you be pro-life and have one abortion? Why not stop it right now? And I make a commitment right now that I'm going to do everything I can to completely abolish abortion in the state of Oklahoma within the first 30 days of office.
Vaccine mandates that are being rolled out right now are entirely unconstitutional and unbiblical. Every state that's a member of these United States, that's a member of our union, said we'll abide by the Constitution. That's why we don't tinker with it too much.
So I believe the word mandate doesn't equate to law. I am a big believer in the 10th Amendment, and that means state sovereignty. I would propose that every single business owner in Oklahoma that's affected by that and stand back and say no, because they don't own you. The federal government does not own you. We need to own that amendment, understand what it is, and not be afraid to push back.
We have to understand where theory came from. Obviously, it comes from the Marxist handbook. And if we preach this and promote this, we end up a Marxist nation. It is not social justice. It is not anti-racism. It's actually racism in its purest form. The very thing Luther talked about, we're not going to allow to be taught where we judge by the color of our skin.
There's one race. It's called the human race. I'm not going to apologize for being white. I'm not even white. I don't even know what I am. Kids in school need to be taught how to live life. Right now, we're teaching them theories about how to hate. That's not education. That's brainwashing. We will not do that under my administration. We will fine every school that does that. And if they don't like it, they can take their education and find another state that will accept that nonsense. People all need to be healed. Our state needs to be healed, our land needs to be healed, the economy needs to be healed, and our confidence needs to be healed. Our hope needs to be restored. God has gifted us as healers. We know that we're called to not just heal people individually like we do, but we know now we're called to heal a group of people called the state of Oklahoma. My name is Mark Sherwood, and I'm running for governor of the state of Oklahoma.